Awesome party people, welcome to another video. Today's video is on what I would call the 3 most important things on car washing. And you'll notice behind me, I've got my wife right here, little Jana, and her car, little white Mercedes. So what are the 3 most important things? Now I can make a list of 100 different things, but to me the 3 most important things that you need to learn in washing your car are these. All right, honey. We've got your obvious, which is a dirty car, correct?
Yes.
What's been going on in California the past week?
Lots of rain.
Lots of rain. So to your right, we have your garden hose. And on the garden hose, you can point to it. Yep, there's the garden hose. And I know already people are going to think like, oh, what a condescending prick of a husband.
Eddie.
He's like, well, yeah, I don't know. Okay. You just get so many comments. Anyhow, so what's attached to the garden hose?
The nozzle.
Good. You know, that's important. Believe it or not. You know why it's important? Because it controls water flow. It's amazing how many people I see that do not attach a nozzle to the water hose, and they will just let the water continue to just run and run and run as they wash the car. Okay, now we have our assortment of tools, our car wash medium. We've got our drying towel. So, babe, do you have any idea what the 3 most critical things of washing your car would possibly be? I'm just going to cut you off right there because I did no prompting. I did no preemptive strategy on this, so you have no idea. I bet you could probably count on both your hands how many times you've actually washed a car or your car in your lifetime. Would that be a fair statement? Okay, how many hands would you need?
I don't know, but more than 1.
Okay. I actually said 2. So let's crouch down a little bit. One of the obvious things, you're gonna need a bucket. Not necessarily a requirement, not one of my critical points, but if you're gonna use these strategies, you're gonna need a bucket. So what are the 3 things? Well, they are this, in no deliberate order. 1 is your washing mitt. These types of washing mitts, which they're called chenille washing mitts. They are made out of microfiber material, and they have all these little fingers. See all those little cool fingers? Mm-hmm. Personally and professionally, I think this is the safest wash mitt that you can use in order to wash your car. You may ask, why do I have 2? Well, you'll notice that they're different colors, because I can then segregate them and know by visual looking exactly what their intended purpose is for. For example, I will use one for what I call the less dirty dirt. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Cool. And I reserve one for the dirtier of dirt.
Okay.
So if you were to choose, honey, which one would you pick for the dirtier dirt?
The dark.
It's kind of a trick question.
Yeah.
Well, you nailed it. Okay. No, that was good. Okay. Why? Why would you pick the black one? And let's say they can't find a black one on my website or on wherever they shop, but they pick a darker one. Mm-hmm. Like, why would you pick the darker one for the dirtier work? I know there's a natural, psychological connection. Dirt is dirt, as in dark material.
Or maybe so it doesn't stain it. I don't know.
Bingo. That's actually why I choose it.
Okay.
Because it's just, I would rather not see the dirt, so it's camouflaged in this. So even though I'm going to clean it each time, it just, to me, that's just a psychological thing. So you can pick whatever you guys, whatever makes sense in your brains. Point being is that I will, and these come conveniently in a package of 2. You can find them the same color, you can find them in different color. If you go to the links below each video, it'll take you to my website, and I've chosen one that has separate colors for you so that you can, for example, keep one to wash your paint and windows with, which would be the cleaner type of washing your car. Okay. And maybe you can keep a black or dark colored one to wash the wheels and the dirty part. Or maybe you can segregate your car down to what's called the belt line. So anything below the belt line is where it gets dirtier versus the less dirty of your car on the top, above the belt line. So you could actually segregate it that way. Once again, segregate it however makes sense in your world. So the second thing would be using a form of a grit guard. Now, grit guard is a name brand of a insert that you put in your wash bucket. Do you have any idea how these work? You probably do.
It just, I guess, keeps the thingy off the bottom of the thing in the dirty water. I don't know.
Exactly. It's a way to separate the dirt that you are going to take off of your car, and it's going to have to go somewhere. Well, the first stage is it's going to go onto your wash mitt. So as you're working around your car and washing it in the attempt of removing the dirt from your car, because we want a clean car, not a dirty car, is it's going to transfer the dirt to this. Well, then as you are rinsing out, and so what you're doing is you're going to simultaneously rinse out your wash mitt and apply some new car wash shampoo, car wash soap to your wash mitt. So in that process, you're going to transfer the dirt from your car to the bucket. So this little cool contraption, it's elevated off the wash bucket. If you could hold those for me, thank you. So you put it into the wash bucket. Now there's many versions. I don't recall which version this is, but it's got little holes I can actually see through. So the dirt can settle down and it will filter through this, and it's got these longer things that hold it up off the ground. The goal is, and I actually prefer this version here, which is like the true grit guard. So the grit guard is both a generalization. It's kind of like talking about Kleenex. Kleenex is the name brand of what?
Tissue.
Tissue, facial tissue, whatever you want to call it. So Kleenex, here in the US, we just say, oh, can I have some Kleenex? But Kleenex is actually a name brand. It's kind of like the grit guard. It's a name brand of this type of insert. Hence, this is not a grit guard. It's just an insert to keep your wash medium, which is the water and your choice of a car wash soap, and it will allow the dirt to filter down, settle on the bottom. Okay. So every time, and we're going to go with this one. So every time you put the wash mitt in, you swish it around, you release the dirt's going to settle down below that grit guard. And now when you come back in for repeated applications, that heavy dirt will settle below that. So this does not come in contact with that heavier dirt that is now settled below that screen. It's like a filter. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So that allows you to not reintroduce that same dirt that you just took off, or I should clarify, it's going to allow you to reintroduce far less dirt than more dirt. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So the third thing, and by the way, where were we just prior to this? Starts with a G, ends with a yim. Jim. Three little letters. Jim.
I know, but we drove your car last.
I know. We drove, yes.
Only we drive my car when it rains.
Exactly, because my car does not get wet. Hence the video of washing your car versus my car. So there's a little sidebar, but it's funny because on the way home, we also don't drive my car on the freeway. That's a story, that's a video for a whole nother time. So we take the streets and we pass a self-serve car wash on the way home. You probably don't look at it every time, but I do, because I find it entertaining. Why do I find it entertaining? Because it's funny to see the knuckleheads there attempting to wash their own cars in these very outdated, literally challenged ways of washing their cars. So one of the things that I commonly see is that they will take these household cloths, wash rags, towels, bath towels, and they will dry their car off with it. Now, it may feel nice to your skin. It may smell nice to your nose because you've used some kind of fabric softener and you think, oh, it's 100% cotton. It's got to be safe for my paint, right? Seems logical enough.
Okay.
But the reality is it's suitable for your skin, but less suitable for your car paint. So despite how soft it feels to your hands, it's not as soft as something like this, which is a microfiber cloth. Specifically, this is the Meguiar's. Now, I'm just only hesitating because in the first years of my videos, all I did, and that's a little bit of an exaggeration, but much of what I did is I talked about Meguiar's products. Now, anytime that I mention anyone else's products, they think that I have sold out, because clearly I must be getting endorsed or paid by another manufacturer. But yet, when I was talking about Meguiar's endlessly, no one called me a sellout. I don't get it, but whatever. Regardless of that whole moment, this Meguiar's water magnet drying towel, see right there, which you probably can't see from there, it says microfiber. That is the key word, microfiber. Microfibers come in endless versions, endless thicknesses, endless weights. They're called GSM, which is grams per square meter. That only references the weight. It does not reference the quality or anything else. It's purely the weight. So that's a video for another time. Point is this is a very easy cloth to get. It's been around for a very long time, and it is what I call the winning balance, meaning it's made of microfiber. It's way gentler on your car than that silly bath towel that you probably might be or perhaps still using. Clearly the world is still embracing the old school bath towel mentality, because I see it every time we pass that car wash. Secondly, I've talked to some of my neighbors in this neighborhood who are even older than us, believe it or not, and they've never even heard of a microfiber cloth. Seriously, that seems, I know, you're married to a detailer, so it probably doesn't even make sense. But they've never even heard of a microfiber cloth. I find that hard to believe. It's like, okay, maybe if you've been living under a rock, I don't know. So not only are these gentler on your paint, way gentler, way softer than a bath towel, but they're more absorbent. Now, if you've tried to dry your car off with a bath towel, before it actually gets damp and it's dry, which makes sense, like, okay, I want to dry my car off, therefore I'm going to use a dry towel. Have you ever noticed it, where it feels like it's just pushing the water around? It's not really absorbing it. Have you ever had that?
With a real towel?
Yeah, with a real towel.
Well, a bath towel, whatever.
See, once you embrace microfiber and you got the right microfiber, they're so much more absorbent. So instead of just pushing the water around and then kind of soaking it up eventually, okay, how about this? Have you noticed that when you have a wet cloth that's a non-microfiber, like a cotton, it's wet, but you wring it out. And then when you go to wipe up water, it absorbs it much quicker than a fresh, dry one. Have you ever noticed that? I have.
I
okay,
can't
I have. That's all right.
Something with
I'm kind of throwing you. I'm kind of throwing you a curveball at a level because there was no like rehearsal. Thank you. Point is I think someone out there is going to be like, yeah, you know what? Now that you say that, Darren, I remember that. It's true. It's like it pushes the water around until it gets wet, and then you wring it out, and then suddenly, now that it's damp, it soaks up the water much quicker than when it's dry. It doesn't make sense, but it happens. So welcome to the world of microfibers. Safer, more absorbent. So those are my three things. Your wash, mitt, go with this. A grit guard, go with some type of grit guard you can put in your bucket and use a microfiber. Doesn't have to be one of these. This to me is the winning balance because it's a microfiber material, it's absorbent, it's safe, and it comes in a size that's manageable. Now I know they have these big emphasis on that, bath sheets that can be very effective if you know how to use them. But I find that, especially for a person of your stature, physical stature, it's hard to manage something that would be bigger than this. As in, like, okay, now you've just mopped up the water on your car and now you got to try to wring it out. I mean, imagine that being wet, which we will do. It's hard to manage. Therefore, big is not always better. Sometimes big is just bigger, and sometimes big is actually rather inconvenient. I know where your brain's going with that. So this to me is kind of the winning size for most people in the ability to manage it, wring it out, use it. Okay, so those are my 3 tips. With that said, is we're going to wash this car, and I'm going to offer additional tips to you that I think will be useful that you may have not thought of, that's going to hopefully produce better results into your world. Now for today's car washing moment, we're going to go with the new Turtle Wax Hybrid Solution Ceramic Wash and Wax. Does that sound glorified or what? I'm using my DJ voice. So ceramic, I know, can you not? Please don't. I'm not actually a fan of my voice, so I wish there's like this tuning knob.
Be normal.
I wish I could like had this tuning knob, kind of like an equalizer on my neck or somewhere, maybe on my wrist, where I could like adjust the volume and the tonality of my voice. Anyhow, so Turtle Wax. Yes, I was out at, what was it called? The Turtle Wax Test Drive, which, by the way, Turtle Wax thumbs up, regardless of what you think of their products, which is a video series for a whole nother time. They absolutely hit it out of the park as far as treating us like royalty. They took us out to Scottsdale, flew like a lot of us from all over the world, never mind all parts of the country, put us up in these great accommodations in Scottsdale, Arizona. Anyhow, so this is part of their hybrid solutions. This, okay, we could have endless debates as to what the best car wash shampoo is. One of the things I want you guys to know is that whether you call this a soap, a shampoo, a cleaner, a detergent, doesn't really matter. What really matters is that you understand that most of these soaps are just glorified, spruced up, scented up, packaged up lubricants that make suds generally in the process. So they're not really detergents in the context of like grease cutting things. Does that make sense?
Not really. I mean, you'd think they would.
Well, you probably, if I were to ask you as a car owner, you probably would want both. You'd probably say like, well, I want something that's going to clean the dirt off my car, but I also want something that's going to lubricate and make it slicker so that I do less scratching in the process of removing the dirt off my car, right?
Right.
The problem is you can't really have both. So if you were to have a chemist and a formulator in front of me, they could sit there and deliberate endlessly to the merits of their particular formulation. But the reality is that most car wash shampoos are just brightly colored and scented up. And when you induce water to them with pressure, they foam up. And so it's kind of like guilt by association, where people think like, oh, wow, that's cool. The more foam that I've produced, the more gentler it will be with my car, and the cleaner it will come. Well, that's where you have to would define clean, because not all dirt's created equal. So you're going to have dirt that's truly water soluble, that you literally could just use water to wash your car with, but that's where a lubrication comes in, and that's what they put into a lot of these car wash shampoos, is silicones, those types of ingredients that will actually aid in lubricating the dirt particles as you're washing your car. But it won't cut the grease. And there's people that would say, well, that's a good thing, because then it won't strip your wax. Because grease, wax, those types of, I don't know, materials, chemicals, they need a grease cutting detergent in order to cut it, which is different than water soluble dirt. See? Once again, not everything's created equal.
Well, growing up,
Yeah.
I remember using
Dawn dish soap.
dishwashing.
Yes. See, you know why that's
liquid.
effective as a dish soap? Because it cuts
does
grease.
cutting.
A lot of the stuff we eat is made of grease and oils, right?
Hopefully.
So, yeah, it makes it taste better. But when it comes to your car, and there's plenty of videos that will say how that will actually destroy clear coat, which is just not true, by the way. Yes, it will continually to dry it out. By drying out, I mean removing every type of wax or sealant that you've applied to your car. So I don't recommend it as an ongoing basis, but it's very effective at cutting grease. But really, most of the dirt on your car is not about grease. It's just dirt. You know, dirt from the road, dirt from just dirt. Like your car collects dust and it gets wet and then therefore makes a dirty mess. So here we have our bucket. So we're going to put our wash guard, grit guard in the bottom. And then we're going to, now the directions, per the directions of this label, it says to add approximately 3 ounces. I'm not going to measure that.
That's right.
I'm just a guesstimate. Okay, so now, if this was you and I wasn't around, I know your legs are killing you, right?
Well, I just was getting ready.
Yeah. So you add water, but before you go in level 10, remember what's going to happen. It's an empty bucket.
What would you do?
I'd be
Okay.
very wet for one.
But
So
would
how
the
are you
audience
going to?
like it?
They would love it. They would love it if you
Okay,
just
I
shot that
won't
at my
go- I won't
face.
go level 10.
Okay, so because what you don't want it to do is you just
Right,
go
you
in
don't
level
want
10
it
and
to
go,
go- Right.
you got a big mess on your hand. So if you were doing this by yourself, would you attempt to try to create as much foam as possible?
No?
Oh, you wouldn't? That
not
just is
really.
irrelevant to you?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, a lot of us have been groomed to think like, oh, the more suds, the better.
Yeah.
You got these like these memories like back in the day of, you know, your dad coming out, and I don't mean your dad or my dad, but dads on movies, and they got the wash bucket and all this tons of foam. Anyhow, go ahead and fill it up.
Okay.
What you can do is you just do this. You just
feels
put the
scary.
nozzles
Yeah.
as close to the water as possible,
Okay.
rather than from back
Right.
here,
Yeah.
so it makes a less of a mess. So you hold that.
How much water?
Well, don't add water yet, because
Oh.
what I want to do. So here, go ahead and keep adding water.
Okay.
See all the foam that's being created. Now, some people will say that foam is a good thing. That's enough water, by the way. The directions actually say add, I think, a gallon or 2 gallons. You can pick whatever works for you. Now, a lot of people would say that foam is good because that foam is the lubricants. But I say that I would prefer less foam because I want those lubricants to be part of the actual water. Does that make sense? So if you just created all this foam,
Okay.
and you could say, oh, there's lubricants in it, but I would rather use the water that actually has the ingredients in a more concentrated form. Does that make sense?
Okay.
So this foam is what I would call a more diluted version of the lubricants inside that chemical, inside
Okay.
that wash soap.
Yes.
The water itself would contain more of the concentrate. So while a lot of people want to create a bunch of foam to put on their car and then wash it, I would rather have the actual water. So it's, once again, we've been groomed. A lot of us have been groomed in different ways. That's just a little sidebar. So at this point, we've got our wash mitt, our chenille wash mitt. I'm just going to put it in there, let it pre-soak. But what we want to do is we want to blast off as much of the dirt particles that we can with water,
Okay.
knowing that there's still going to be plenty of dirt stuck to the paint. So you could call that like a pre-wash, a pre-soak. So therefore, would you like to do this?
Okay.
And if you did, would you apply any kind of strategy to it?
I'm just rinsing the car.
Well,
Or-
what the strategy is that you want to blast off the debris, the dirt that can be blasted off of that hose, accepting that it's not going to be perfectly clean, but you want to get the more loose debris off with that hose or the water.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Can I do
Okay,
it?
so go for it.
It's not coming off.
So really, what I would do is this, I would kind of dissect my car and say, okay, the more dirty dirt,
Yeah.
and let me define what I mean by dirty dirt. So when it rains, The water gets on the road. The road is filled with dirt, grease, oils, and little particles of broken up road matter. And that gets flung up onto the sides of your car, which then stick. So if you were to feel the side of your car, you would actually feel more of a grit up here because it's literally like little tiny rocks and pebbles versus the dirt that is up here. Because the dirt that's up here is more about the dust that got wet. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Also, you have areas like this that are filled with what you would call intricate type of components, parts, materials, whatever. So what I want to do specifically is strategically use this nozzle, and I prefer a nozzle, by the way, boys and girls, that I can control right here. So I can go to a fan, to a stream instantly. I don't want to sit here and adjust. You ever seen those big like fireman hose? And they're so silly. Anyhow, so now I want to blast the areas that dirt can collect, like the big chunkier stuff. I want to blast those areas with the water. So that could be the wheels. Let's say you're not using a separate wheel cleaner. That could be the bottom. This is what's called, do you know what those are called? Do you remember?
Excuse
Starts
me.
with an A, or I'm A. Where did that come from? Starts with an R.
Sorry.
Ends with an ochre.
Rocker panel?
Yes, rocker panel. So basically, some people call it the belt line. It's the halfway point around your car. So everything below it is going to be dirtier. Everything above it is going to be less dirty. So this is where I'm going to strategically apply pressure and blow off as much of those chunks as I can around the perimeter of the car, and then pay attention to seams. Let's say that your side mirror, it's got inside of it. So these are the areas that I'm going to blast off initially in the pre-washing down. And I'm just going to get it wet. See, like the back end. I don't even know if the camera can see me. So the back end is going to collect a lot of dirt. So up underneath the license plate frame, here, hold that. For example, we have the back end. Notice around the license plate frame, the back end is always going to get dirtier than the majority of the rest of the car. That was kind of redundant, wasn't it? Because you've got this whole turbulence that gets created as you drive and the air kicks it up. So like up underneath that deck lid handle, you've got the spoiler, you've got the license plate, you've got the rear bumper. So I'm going to go in kind of like level 10 and blow off as much of that as possible. You've got down below at the rear valance, you know, that black plastic piece. So go ahead and blow that off. Yep. Okay, well done. So that's just kind of an added strategy as far as your initial wetting of the car. And at this point, go ahead and get the rest of that side. Okay, cool. Now, here's the added strategy. You separate the car, as I talked about. Let's pretend that there's an imaginary line called the belt line. Everything below it's referred to the rocker panels. This is the dirtier dirt. So you separate your car in half. You wash from the top down and around. So essentially it's like two sections. You've got a horizontal section and then you've got the vertical section. So you start the top down to the belt line all the way around. That's your first section that you want to get. Then you come back around all the way around on the lower section. Make sense?
Okay.
And the goal is to try to manage the dirt as much as possible, which is the same reason we have that insert, is to manage the dirt as possible. So here we start with the roof. Now you can't really reach across. Now, something else that I see people do is they go in level 10, level hot. They come in hot, and they think that they just got to scrub their car. This is where you need to understand that dirt, like at a level, you need to scrub it, but I see people going so aggressively where it's almost like they're trying to use the dirt to polish their paint. But really what they're doing is they're using the dirt to scratch their paint.
Right.
So you want to just gently allow the weight of that saturated cloth, and you just glide it back and forth. Because this car wash soap is not going to cut everything off of it. You're just trying to remove the dirt in the safest way possible. So therefore, you just glide it back and forth. Now, if you come across little spots, you can pick it off with your finger. You can save it for later. You can use a little corner of this to go a little more aggressively with it. It's up to you as to how you do it. You wash off whatever you think is sufficient to get your car wash mitt dirty. Then you rinse it off. Come back through. I like to lift up the windshield wipers. You want to pay attention to the seams. Like this has a lip under here, so I'm going to force, and by force I mean appropriately force it underneath that lip to clean it. Then I'm going to proceed with the top surfaces. And you can flip your cloth over your wash mitt. So therefore I would actually get two sides every time that I dip it in and out of my bucket. Does that make sense?
Yep.
I get it in here, agitate it, release that dirt, and then I continue to go around, wash the car, flip the thing over, lift up the wiper blade, now, since the camera can only see half of the car, I'm going to just use this half to demonstrate. So you just pay special attention to some of the embellishments of the car itself, like around the door, or I'm sorry, the window frame. You want to get those fibers up in there so you get it really clean. And this is where you have to pay attention to the details of the car. So for example, behind the door handles, get up underneath there. Now there's my imaginary line. So pretend, man, my pants are falling off. My imaginary line. Now let's just pretend I did that whole car like that. That's where I would probably go in for a rinse. Rinse it off. Now I'm either going to switch to my black cloth, if that's how you wanted to segregate it, which I'm not going to do in this moment. I'm now going to come in and work my way down that rest of the belt line. And even that I'm going to segregate, because I accept that the further down I go, the worse it's going to get. So I'm going to do this section here, come in for a rinse, and then do the section down here. Flip the cloth over, and down here you'll have to be a little more aggressive because it's just going to be dirtier. Do a rinse. Okay, so let's finish washing the car. We'll just stop this, bring it back in for when it's time to dry the car off.
Okay.
Okay, we've washed, we've rinsed. Now, the front end represents a unique challenge. Why? It's this thing called bugs. Not all bugs, like everything else, are created equal in life.
Right.
One of my many mantras that people that have been following me for any length of time, it's like, wow, nothing's ever created equal, Darren. Well, guess what? It just never is. So how do you deal with the bugs? The front end is going to get a certain type of dirt and debris unique to the rest of the car. Bugs is one of those things that make it unique. So you can just wash your car like normal, dry it off, and accept that you're going to have to come back in and spot treat your car for different types of dirt that are still remaining. Or you can just grab while it's still dry. But because you'll notice it's shaded outside, I'm not worried about the car drying before I can get, yes.
Okay.
If I was working in direct sun and hot weather, hot temperatures, then I'm going to have to manage my water so it doesn't spot up and create hard water spots. Today's not one of those days. So that's where you will have to make adjustments based on your particular situation. This is a cloth or a tool. Let's call it a tool. It's got microfiber on one side. It's got this nylon mesh on the other side. It's very effective at removing bugs because this is a little more aggressive. And by aggressive, I just mean it's got a little more bite to it. Microfiber, but you don't have to have one of those. You can just take this and you can sit here and you have to finesse and try to work that buggage off. You can use another cleaner to help break it down. Really, I've never found any truly magical chemical that's going to be safe for the paint, that's going to simultaneously be safe for the paint and really break through bug guts. It's more about what I call dwell time, as in you allow some kind of liquid, in this case it's water and a car wash soap, to soften it up. Therefore it will break away easier and then you can clean it off. So it's up to you as to how you want to attack that. Just know that the front end is going to represent different sort of challenges than the rest of the car. Now I'm just demonstrating this for you. I'm just going to hose it off so we can get to the next step, which is drying. So just as an added little side note, we're done washing the car, has yet to be dried off. Now you've got your wash mitt. I take my bucket and this is where I just take my nozzle up against the bucket itself. I'm going to use the pressure created by the nozzle and I'm going to do a clean on my wash mitt. Then I wring it out as tightly as possible, and now I let it drip dry, or I should say air dry, because it's not dripping anymore. I've just wrung it out. So now I'm going to let it air dry for next use. If you put this away while it's wet, then you're going to have the potential for it to build mildew in the process, so you want exposure to the air. So now I've cleaned my wash mitt. I'm good to go for the next time. So let's pull in and see how much dirt. Look at that water.
I know.
See how dirty that is? That's because you had a filthy, dirty car. So let's see if we can capture this. But the water's so murky. See how murky that water is? So we're going to let this settle as we're drying the car off. And then we'll be able to see the kind of dirt with this insert. See how it's raised up about 2.5 inches off the bottom. So all the dirt settles below this. Your wash mitt only goes this far. It's not commingling with the dirt that settles below this grate or the screen. So let's dry the car off and we'll come back for a view of that. Hold up that wash. I don't know what the actual dimensions are. Let's see if this says it is 22 inches by 30 inches. So 22 would therefore be the smaller, shorter size. And you are what? You're pushing 4'11"-ish. So that you could actually probably use it as a blanket. Point is, that's brand new.
Yes.
Now, what I did is I removed the label from it. It usually has a little tag sewn to it.
Yes.
So I removed that first. Now, how would you approach wash or drying your car off? Is there any technique that you would automatically default to right now?
Not really. I mean,
Okay.
I might use one end first and...
Okay, well, why don't you just go for it, see what happens.
Okay.
Do you feel that that thing is pretty absorbent?
Yeah.
Knowing that it's literally brand new?
Yeah.
Because from here, my perspective, it looks very absorbent.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's many ways you could do that. You could fold it because you'll notice that 30 inches in length, you're not going to be able to go too far down on your car before it's going to want to start touching the ground.
Right.
You don't want it to touch the ground. So you can fold it, try to manage it. You're managing it rather well with two hands. So would you apply any type of strategy as far as drying it off, like we did with washing?
Just.
I'm
Probably,
not suggesting that, this really isn't a trick question. I'm just curious, like what's going through your brain?
I would just use one end until I felt it wasn't drying enough or it was saturated, and then I'd go to the other one.
Okay, I see. Now, a lot of guys would say that it would be good that you
Yes.
that you separate the car in half again, because there's still going to be some type of dirt remaining on your car that's unwanted. So you don't want to drag that dirt from the bottom. So there'll be some guys that want to scrutinize this strategy further down the rabbit hole, which I get it.
So just do the top.
Yeah,
like
but really it's it's the person's car. They'll figure it out. I'm just saying that's what some people could possibly say or do. I'm going to bust out a second type of microfiber cloth. This is more of a standard version. This one's actually from Autofiber. Thank you, Ian. This is what's called an edgeless microfiber cloth. It actually is what I would call a two-sided, meaning the one side has a little thicker, fluffier nap. The other side has a shorter, finer, more dense nap. That really matters not. Really, the key point is that you just use a microfiber cloth, not a bath cloth to dry your car off with. It is much more friendlier on your paint and much more highly absorbent. Plus, wait for it, does not leave lint. I guarantee if you're using a bath towel of some kind, it is leaving lint. Man, you've got a massive scratch right up here on your hood. That looks new to me.
Will you fix it?
Well, that's so deep that I can just diminish it. I would have to take off.
Who could have done that?
I don't know. That's pretty significant, which is in a weird, peculiar spot. And based on the shape of that scratch, I question how it was created. I don't know. Mechanic? I don't know. I know there's going to be some mechanic out there that's going to instantly be like, wow, everyone blames everything on the mechanic. It's like, well, sorry. If you ever watch mechanics work around the car, they become so hyper-focused on fixing the part of the car that they lose this awareness of like, oh, gee, I'm dragging my body up against the car and I'm scratching it. Sorry, but I've just seen it happen too many times. Not to disparage all the mechanics out there. I myself was a mechanic at one time, like 100 years ago. So I get the dilemma. So drying is pretty straightforward. What I want to illustrate is one of my added things. Okay, while you are drying off, babe, what I will show is, let's pretend that this entire car is dried off. At this point, now I'm not worried about water spotting, anything else. I'm going to go around and now I'm going to either use the same microfiber cloth or use a dedicated microfiber cloth, and I'm going to wipe down the door jambs. Now the door jambs will tend to collect a fair amount of dirt, especially here at the lower part. So you may want to keep a separate dedicated cloth just for the door jambs. And when you do the door jambs, remember this thing called the trunk jam, or wait for it, the gas filler cap. What's that?
I did that area, but that's okay.
Wait, you can talk. I didn't
did
really
that.
hear you.
It's okay.
But what'd you say?
I did it.
Oh, you already did it?
Yeah.
Oh. See, this is where I would wait
Excuse me.
and not commingle my drying cloth.
Okay.
Because dirt, a unique type of dirt is going to collect there. Also, the wheel well lips, or I don't know what you want to call them, wheel well ridges, because there's this area of the car that wraps around, it's still painted, and it's going to collect dirt right along here. That is also a time that would be appropriate that you get the wheel well lips.
So do I just wring this out, or?
Yep, you just wring it out and then use it as much as possible until your car is dry. Hey, party people, back at the wash bucket. You see how dirty the water is. Clearly it's going to take some time for the dirt to completely settle, because I wanted to show you just how much dirt collects at the bottom. But nonetheless, there's our dirty water. Now you have a clean, dry car. You wipe the door jambs down. I mentioned the gas filler cap, the trunk. Remember those areas. Now, this is the problem I have with this old school way of washing a car. Many of you will embrace it. You will not embrace what I call, or what is called in the industry, waterless washing, no rinse washing, or dry washing. Because of water that gets everywhere, it becomes a pain in the butt. Because you drive away and then it just drips and makes a mess. And then you have to touch it up after the fact. So this is where you can employ the use of a blower. Now they make a dedicated blower in the detail industry, like that one from, I think, Chemical Guys. Yes. Pretty much every company sells this version of that blower. To me, and I'm not disparaging any particular company, it's kind of a glorified, hyped up, overpriced tool. But it's got its features, which is it's small. So for a person like you, how easier would it be for you to manage that and to manhandle it, and in your case, woman handle it, more effectively and safely than this thing? Probably easier, right?
Yes.
So often, like anything, everything has trade-offs. So the features of this will actually become the negative things to you because of the size and strength that you have. Also the constraints. So we're working outside the car, so we're not really constrained by anything as, for example, like the inside of the car. So there's times where I will use a blower on the inside of the car to blow things loose, like dirt and debris. So something this big on the inside of the car would not be as appropriate as something that size. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that's why I actually keep both of them on hand. The goal of this is, like me, I like this leaf blower because it's cheaper than that. It's roughly half the price of that. Plus, it blows out a larger volume of air out this nozzle than that does. That is more condensed, or what's the exact word I'm looking for that slips my brain right now? Wow, it's kind of like a nozzle where it's
Concentrated?
Concentrated. Thank you. Oh, my brain, my little reptilian brain sometimes. So this has a more concentrated airflow, which could be good. On the outside of the car, in particular, a good thing. On the inside of the car, there might be little knobs and whatever that too much concentration is not a good thing. So once again, it's always this balance act of what's a winning balance or winning combination. Also this, you'll notice length. Size does matter. Sometimes the size, we want it to be small. Sometimes we want it to be big. So like, for example, I can stand here and I can blow this entire door by just standing here and just moving my arm. Now if I had this one, because that tip is so concentrated, if I stand this far back, how effective is it going to be? So I'm going to have to like either reach way over, which is silly, or I'm going to have to stand here and do more movements because I've got this small blower. So once again, trade-offs. You've got to figure out what the winning balance is for you. In my world, it's having both of them. overall, at a base level, what I want to illustrate is the unique features of a blower like this, so you can blow out the water that's trapped in all those seams and crevices of your car, so that when you drive away, it's not dripping unwantedly. And that's what we're going to do, is we're going to blow. But for example, if you accept that there's all these nuances of your car, you're going to, if you really want to do it thoroughly, you're going to have to get up and use a blower on all these areas. And just like we wash the car, you start from the top down, because when you blow out those seams, it's going to disperse the water out onto your paint. So if you blow, you spend all this time blowing down at the bottom, and then you come at the top and you start blowing, now it's going to blow water, new water, back into those seams. So you want to work from the top down. We're going to blow the car, just accept it. It's a feature, a benefit. You'll decide for you in your world whether you want to do it or not, but I just want to illustrate that you have options. So in a perfect world, if you had an endless budget, you could have both blowers. In my world, if you have less of a budget, less money to work with, I think that this one here represents the winning balance more cases than not. Yes, this has some features and benefits that you're not going to obtain with this, but if you had to pick one or the other, my professional opinion would be go with this one. Will you hold that, honey? Uh-huh. Because really 3 reasons. One, blows more volume and air. Secondly, it's got more reach to it, so I have to move around less to get things. Specifically, like if I'm blowing off the wheels, I can stand here and just blow like that, rather than have to get up and do, this whole maneuver act like that. Thirdly, it's just less expensive. But it's also going to take up more room in my garage. So once again, everything's got trade-offs. With that said, down below, I know it's a long video about something so basic as a car wash. Often, we stand on the sidelines and think something so trivial to the point of being mundane and very simple, but then when you get a little way down the road, you realize that suddenly something very simple turns into something far more complex than you thought, like washing a car. Like, oh wow, what's there to know about washing a car? Probably more than you thought. Once you get into it, you realize, whoa, I never thought about that. Gee, I never thought about that. Well, that's the goal of the video, to try to get you to think about things that maybe you didn't think about, and help you to get better results in your life in a more efficient and effective and safe manner. With that said, leave your comments below, give it a thumbs up, subscribe, hit the bell icon. You'll get the alerts every time I upload a new video, and we will see you on the next video.